Jake Morrison woke up at sunrise like he did every morning on New Haven Colony. The golden light came through his bedroom window and warmed his face as he stretched and got out of bed. He loved mornings here because the air was clean and fresh and reminded him of his childhood farm back on Earth. Jake had been the colony administrator for 3 years now, and he still could not believe how beautiful this world was. He walked to the kitchen and made coffee while looking out at the vast wheat fields that stretched to the horizon. The farmers were already working in the fields even though it was still early. Jake smiled because he knew that this harvest would be their best one yet. 2.3 million people lived on New Haven Colony, and they had built something wonderful together. They had schools for the children and hospitals for the sick, and markets where people traded goods and made friends. Jake finished his coffee and walked to his office in the main administration building. The building was not fancy, but it worked well for their needs. His assistant, Carol Williams, was already at her desk, sorting through the daily reports from different parts of the colony. Carol had moved here with her husband and 2 young daughters 5 years ago, and she loved the quiet life away from the crowded cities of Earth. "Good morning, Jake," Carol said with a cheerful voice. "The harvest reports look really good this week. The eastern farms are saying they will have 20% more wheat than last season." Jake nodded and felt proud of what they had accomplished. "That's great news, Carol. Send those numbers to Earth Command so they know we are doing well out here." Carol began typing on her computer while Jake reviewed the other reports on his desk. The medical center had treated only minor injuries this week. The school system was running smoothly with no problems. The water treatment plants were working perfectly. The power grid was stable across all sectors. Everything was peaceful and normal, just like it had been for months. At 10 in the morning, Jake walked outside to meet with the farming committee. The committee was made up of 12 farmers who represented different regions of the colony. They met every week to discuss crops and weather and any problems that needed solving. Jake enjoyed these meetings because the farmers were honest, hardworking people who cared about their community. Ben Rogers was the head of the committee, and he had been farming for 40 years before coming to New Haven. Ben's weathered hands and kind eyes showed his experience and wisdom. "Jake, we need to talk about expanding the southern fields," Ben said as they sat down at the meeting table. "We have more families arriving next month, and we will need more food production." Jake listened carefully as Ben explained the plans for expansion. They would need to clear more land and build new irrigation systems and construct storage facilities for the extra crops. It would take several months to complete, but it was necessary for the growing population. While they talked about farming plans, nobody noticed the small objects that appeared at the edge of the star system. The objects were moving fast toward New Haven Colony, but they were still too far away for the colony's basic sensors to detect them. The colony had only simple defense systems because Earth Command thought this area of space was safe and peaceful. The meeting with the farmers lasted until noon, and then Jake walked back to his office feeling satisfied with their plans. Carol was eating lunch at her desk and reading messages from other colonies in the sector. "Jake," she said, looking up from her computer, "I got a message from the Martinez family. They want to know if there are any teaching jobs available here. They have 3 children and they want to move somewhere quieter." Jake smiled because new families were always welcome on New Haven Colony. "Tell them we always need good teachers, Carol. Have them send their information and we will see what positions are open." At 2 in the afternoon, Jake decided to visit the elementary school where his friend Lisa Carter worked as a teacher. Lisa had moved to New Haven Colony 2 years ago after her husband died in an accident on Earth. She found peace here working with children and helping them learn about their new world. The school was a cheerful building painted bright blue with a playground where children could run and play safely. Jake found Lisa in her classroom helping a group of 8-year-old students with their reading lesson. The children were sitting in a circle on the floor while Lisa read them a story about brave explorers who discovered new planets. The children listened with wide eyes and asked questions about space travel and alien worlds. "Mr. Morrison," called out a little girl named Amy, "do you think we will ever meet aliens out here?" Jake laughed gently and sat down with the children. "I don't know, Amy. The galaxy is a big place with lots of mysteries. Maybe someday we will meet friendly aliens who want to be our friends." Lisa smiled at Jake and continued reading the story. After the children went outside for recess, Jake and Lisa walked around the playground watching them play on the swings and slides. The afternoon sun was warm and pleasant and everything felt perfect and safe. "I love it here, Jake," Lisa said as they watched the children play. "These kids are growing up in such a wonderful place. They don't have to worry about pollution or crime or any of the problems we had on Earth." Jake agreed completely because New Haven Colony was everything they had hoped it would be when they first started planning it. The colony was proof that humans could build better lives among the stars if they worked together and cared about each other. At 4 in the afternoon, Jake returned to his office to finish his daily paperwork. Carol had already gone home to spend time with her daughters, but she had left all the completed reports on his desk. Jake worked quietly for an hour, organizing files and answering messages from Earth Command about supply shipments and population growth. At 5:30, Jake was getting ready to go home when the first alarm started ringing. The sound was loud and harsh, and it made his heart race because he had never heard it before. Jake ran to the communications center in the basement of the administration building where the colony's defense officer, Captain Lisa Carter, monitored space around their world. Lisa Carter was not the same Lisa who taught at the elementary school. This Lisa was a former military officer who had volunteered to protect the colony. Even though she knew the chances of danger were very small, she was sitting at her control panel staring at her screens with a look of shock and fear on her face. "Jake," she said in a shaking voice, "we have multiple large ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. They are not responding to our identification requests, and they are moving directly toward our planet." Jake felt cold fear spread through his body as he looked at the screen. 12 massive ships were approaching New Haven Colony, and their design was unlike anything he had ever seen. The ships were dark and angular with weapons that looked designed for destruction rather than exploration. "Try to contact them again, Lisa," Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Maybe they just have communication problems." Lisa tried multiple radio frequencies but got no response from the approaching ships. "Jake, they are not answering any of our calls. These ships look like military vessels, and they are moving into attack formation." Jake knew that New Haven Colony had no real defenses against military warships. They had a few small security ships for emergencies, but nothing that could fight against vessels this size. The colony had been built for farming and families, not for war. "Send an emergency message to Earth Command," Jake told Lisa. "Tell them we need immediate assistance." Lisa began transmitting the emergency signal while Jake watched the enemy ships get closer to their world. He thought about all the families sleeping peacefully in their homes and all the children who had been playing on the playground just hours ago. He thought about Carol and her daughters and Ben Rogers and all the farmers who had worked so hard to build this place. The alien ships reached orbit around New Haven Colony, and Jake could see them clearly on the screen now. They were enormous and covered with weapon systems that were already powering up for attack. Jake realized with growing horror that these aliens had not come to talk or trade or make friends. They had come to destroy everything. The emergency beacon from New Haven Colony traveled through space for 3 long days before it reached Earth's Sol defense network. The signal was weak and broken, but it carried the most terrible news that Earth had received in decades. Admiral Ryan Brooks was in his office at Earth Military Command when the communication officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker, burst through his door with a look of panic on his face. "Sir, we have an emergency transmission from New Haven Colony," Sam said as he handed Admiral Brooks the data pad. "The signal is badly damaged, but you need to see this immediately." Admiral Brooks took the pad and began reading the transcript of Captain Lisa Carter's final transmission. His face grew pale as he read her desperate words about unknown hostile ships attacking civilian targets. The technical data showed that 12 large warships had completely destroyed the colony's defenses in less than 6 hours. 2.3 million people had been living on New Haven Colony, and now they were all gone. "Get me President Martinez on the secure line right now," Admiral Brooks ordered as he stood up from his desk, "and send this data to all department heads immediately. We are going to emergency status as of this moment." Sam Parker ran from the office to carry out the orders while Admiral Brooks stared out his window at the busy streets of Geneva below. Millions of people were going about their normal daily lives with no idea that humanity had just suffered its worst tragedy since the colony wars 50 years ago. Admiral Brooks had been a young officer during those wars, and he remembered the pain of losing so many innocent people to alien aggression. President Helen Martinez was in a meeting with the European Trade Council when her security chief, Agent Mary Foster, interrupted with news of the emergency. President Martinez immediately canceled all her appointments and rushed to the secure command center beneath the government building. The command center was a massive room filled with screens and computers that monitored human space and kept track of all military operations. "Show me everything we know, Ryan," President Martinez said as she entered the command center. Admiral Brooks was already there with his senior staff, and they looked grim and angry. General Kevin Walsh stepped forward with a detailed report about the attack. "Madam President, the aliens hit New Haven Colony with overwhelming force. They targeted civilian areas first, which means this was not a military operation, but a massacre. Our intelligence suggests this was done by a species called the Zephyrians, who have been expanding their territory in that sector." President Martinez felt sick as she looked at the images from New Haven Colony. The orbital photos showed that entire cities had been turned into smoking craters. Farmlands that had fed millions of people were now fields of glass created by intense energy weapons. Schools and hospitals and homes had all been vaporized without any mercy. "What do we know about these Zephyrians?" President Martinez asked as she tried to control her anger. Dr. Angela Torres stepped forward with her xenobiology report. Dr. Torres was Earth's leading expert on alien species, and she had studied the Zephyrians for several years through long-range observations. "Madam President, the Zephyrians are a militant species that has conquered 17 star systems over the past century. They believe that military strength is the only thing that matters, and they see peaceful species as weak and worthless." Dr. Torres activated a holographic display that showed the Zephyrian empire and its recent expansion. The Zephyrians had been moving toward human space for decades, but Earth Command had thought they would avoid human colonies because the costs of war would be too high. Clearly, Earth Command had been wrong about Zephyrian intentions. They attacked New Haven because they saw it as an easy target. Dr. Torres continued, "The colony had minimal defenses, and they probably thought we would not retaliate for such a distant settlement. In Zephyrian culture, they only respect overwhelming displays of military power." Admiral Brooks walked to the main display screen and activated a classified file that made everyone in the room gasp. The file showed the true size of Earth's military forces, which had been kept secret from both the public and most government officials. "Madam President, it is time to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of." The screen displayed technical specifications for 700,000 warships that had been built in secret over the past 50 years. The ships were hidden in bases throughout the Sol system and in nearby star systems that were officially listed as mining operations or research stations. Earth had been preparing for a major war while publicly maintaining a peaceful image to avoid frightening other species. "My God, Ryan," President Martinez whispered as she stared at the massive fleet specifications. "How did you build all of this without anyone knowing?" "We learned our lessons from the colony wars, Madam President," Admiral Brooks replied. "We decided that humanity would never again be caught unprepared for alien aggression. Every human settlement in space has been secretly contributing resources to build this fleet. The outer colonies thought they were funding mining operations, but they were actually building the largest military force in galactic history." Admiral Walsh activated another display that showed the fleet organization. There were 50,000 Dreadnought-class ships that were larger and more powerful than anything the Zephyrians possessed. There were 150,000 heavy cruisers equipped with weapons that could destroy entire space stations. There were 200,000 destroyers designed for rapid strike missions, and there were 300,000 fighter bombers that could overwhelm any enemy defense system. Each ship uses technology that is decades ahead of anything other species possess, General Walsh explained. "Our plasma cannons are powered by miniaturized fusion reactors that give them 3 times the power of comparable alien weapons. Our kinetic railguns fire projectiles at 15% of light speed. Our shields can absorb energy levels that would destroy other ships." President Martinez walked around the command center, looking at all the data about Earth's secret military buildup. She thought about the children who had died on New Haven Colony, and she thought about the families who would never see their loved ones again. She thought about the Zephyrians who had murdered innocent people simply because they thought humans were weak. "Gentlemen," President Martinez said in a voice that was cold and hard as steel, "I want every one of those 700,000 ships prepared for immediate deployment. The Zephyrians wanted to see what humanity is capable of when we are threatened. They are about to get exactly what they asked for. Admiral Brooks smiled grimly as he received authorization to activate the largest military operation in human history. Madam President, I estimate we can have the entire fleet assembled and ready to depart within 2 weeks. The Zephyrians will never see us coming. Dr. Torres looked worried as she watched the military preparations begin. Admiral Brooks, I should warn you that deploying a fleet this large will terrify every species in the galaxy. Once other civilizations see what we have built, they will know that humanity has been preparing for galactic war. Good, Admiral Brooks replied. Let them all know that humanity is not the weak, peaceful species they thought we were. The massacre at New Haven Colony will be the last time anyone attacks human civilians. President Martinez authorized the fleet activation and then addressed the senior staff. I want this operation to send a clear message to every alien civilization in the galaxy. Attack one human settlement and you will face the full military might of Earth itself. The age of humanity being seen as weak and defenseless ends today. Communication officers began sending coded messages to secret military bases throughout human space. Within hours, massive shipyards that had been disguised as civilian facilities began preparing 700,000 warships for the largest revenge mission in galactic history. The Zephyrians had awakened something terrible, and they had no idea what was coming for them. Admiral Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched as the largest military fleet in galactic history assembled around him. The massive dreadnought was 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could crack planets in half. Around him in space, thousands of other ships were emerging from hidden bases that had been disguised as asteroid mining operations for decades. Commander, Paul Davis walked up to Admiral Brooks with the latest fleet status report. Paul had been Ryan's second in command for 10 years, and he had helped plan the secret construction of humanity's war fleet. Admiral, we now have 150,000 ships assembled and ready for departure. The remaining vessels will be here within 6 hours. Admiral Brooks nodded as he watched a group of heavy cruisers take their positions in the massive formation. Each cruiser was 1 kilometer long and carried enough firepower to destroy an entire enemy fleet. The ships moved with perfect precision because their crews had been training for this moment for years, even though most of them had not known the true purpose of their training. Captain Maria Santos was commanding Battle Group 14 from the bridge of her flagship UES Thunderstrike. Maria had grown up on a farming colony similar to New Haven, and the news of the massacre had filled her with cold rage. Her battle group consisted of 50 heavy cruisers and 200 destroyers that would form the spearhead of the attack on Zephyrian space. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Captain, her navigation officer, Lieutenant Jack Wilson, reported. Jack was young, but he was one of the best navigators in the fleet, and Maria trusted him completely. Very good, Jack, Maria replied as she watched the tactical display showing their assigned position in the massive fleet formation. Make sure all weapon systems are fully charged. When we reach Zephyrian space, I want to be ready to fight immediately. Colonel Steve Johnson was preparing his carrier wing for departure from Europa Base in the Outer Sol system. Steve commanded 500 fighter bombers that were hidden inside what appeared to be a research station studying the moons of Jupiter. The fighter bombers were small but incredibly fast, and they carried fusion warheads that could penetrate any known shield system. Colonel, we have clearance for launch, his flight operations officer, Major Lisa Brown, announced. Lisa had been coordinating fighter operations for the secret fleet for 8 years, and she was excited to finally use all their training for a real mission. Steve nodded and activated the base-wide communication system. All pilots, this is Colonel Johnson. Today we launch not just as warriors, but as avengers for our fallen brothers and sisters on New Haven Colony. Every Zephyrian ship we destroy will be justice for the innocent people they murdered. The fighter pilots cheered over the communication channel as they powered up their engines and prepared to launch. These men and women had trained for years in secret exercises that they thought were just war games. Now they knew that every hour of training had been preparing them for this moment of terrible vengeance. Lieutenant Danny Carter was aboard the destroyer UES New Haven's Fury, and he could barely contain his excitement and grief. Danny was Lisa Carter's younger brother, and he had joined the secret fleet after hearing about his sister's heroic final transmission. The destroyer was part of a wolf pack that would hunt down any Zephyrian ships trying to escape the coming battle. Danny, you need to stay focused, his captain commander, Nancy Reed, told him as she saw the angry look in his eyes. Nancy had lost friends in alien attacks before, and she understood Danny's desire for revenge. Your sister died protecting innocent people. Honor her memory by being the best officer you can be. Danny nodded and tried to control his emotions as he checked the destroyer's weapon systems. The ship carried plasma cannons that could fire continuously for hours, and kinetic railguns that could punch through any armor. He wanted every weapon to be perfect when they reached the Zephyrian homeworld. Admiral Brooks received reports from all sectors of the fleet as the final ships arrived at the assembly point. The sight was incredible and terrifying even to him. 700,000 warships stretched across millions of kilometers of space in perfect formation. No species in galactic history had ever assembled a fleet this large, and no enemy had ever faced this level of military power. Admiral, all ships report ready for hyperspace transit, Commander Davis announced. Fleet organization is complete and all weapon systems are operational. Admiral Brooks activated the fleet-wide communication channel so he could speak to every person in the Armada. Nearly 2 million military personnel were waiting to hear his words before they departed on humanity's first major war of conquest and revenge. Officers and crew of Earth's war fleet, Admiral Brooks began. 3 days ago, the Zephyrian Empire attacked New Haven Colony and murdered 2.3 million innocent human beings. Men, women, and children who had never harmed anyone were vaporized by aliens who saw them as weak and worthless. Today we will show the Zephyrians, and every other species in the galaxy, what happens when humanity's children are threatened. The communication channel was silent as 2 million people listened to their commander's words. Many of them had friends or family members who lived on distant colonies, and they all understood that New Haven could have been any human settlement. The attack had not just been against one colony, but against all of humanity. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Admiral Brooks continued. The Zephyrians attacked New Haven because they thought we were defenseless farmers and merchants who would not fight back. They are about to learn that humanity has been preparing for this day for 50 years. We have built the most powerful fleet in galactic history, and today we will use it to ensure that no human colony ever suffers what New Haven endured. Admiral Brooks paused and looked out at the vast fleet surrounding his flagship. He thought about all the years of secret planning and construction that had made this moment possible. He thought about the sacrifices that millions of humans had made to build these ships without anyone knowing the true purpose. Most importantly, he thought about Lisa, Carter, and Jake Morrison and all the other heroes who had died trying to protect their people. Today we depart for Zephyrian space with 700,000 ships and 2 million of humanity's finest warriors, Admiral Brooks concluded. We will not stop until every Zephyrian military installation is destroyed, and every war criminal who participated in the New Haven massacre is brought to justice. The galaxy will remember this day as the moment humanity showed its true strength. The fleet began its hyperspace jump sequence, and one by one the massive ships disappeared into the swirling energy of hyperspace. The journey to Zephyrian space would take 2 weeks using humanity's advanced jump drives that were decades ahead of any alien technology. The Zephyrians had no idea that the largest invasion force in galactic history was racing toward their homeworld. Admiral Brooks remained on the bridge as his flagship entered hyperspace and began the journey to war. He knew that when they arrived at the Zephyrian homeworld, they would face an enemy that had conquered 17 star systems. But the Zephyrians had never fought an enemy like humanity, and they had no idea what was coming for them. The age of humanity hiding its true military power was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. Emperor Vextar was reviewing military reports in his palace on Zephyr Prime when his science advisor Dr. Crixnell burst into the throne room with a look of terror on his reptilian face. The Zephyrian homeworld had been the center of their empire for 800 years, and no enemy had ever threatened their capital planet. The very idea of an attack on Zephyr Prime was unthinkable to most Zephyrians. Your Imperial Majesty, Dr. Crixnell said as he bowed before the massive throne, our long-range sensors have detected an enormous fleet approaching our system. The readings are so large that our computers initially dismissed them as equipment malfunctions. Emperor Vextar was a towering figure even by Zephyrian standards, and his scaled hide bore the scars of many battles from his younger days as a military commander. He had ruled the Zephyrian Empire for 30 years and had overseen the conquest of 6 additional star systems during his reign. No species had ever dared to challenge Zephyrian military supremacy. How large is this fleet? Emperor Vextar asked in his deep rumbling voice. He expected to hear about a few hundred ships at most, because no known species possessed a truly massive navy except for the Zephyrians themselves. Dr. Crixnall's hands shook as he activated his portable display device and showed the sensor readings to his emperor. Your Majesty, our instruments indicate approximately 700,000 vessels approaching at high speed. The fleet will reach our system in less than 6 hours. Emperor Vextar stared at the display in disbelief and then roared with laughter. 700,000 ships is impossible, Crixnall. Our entire Imperial Navy consists of only 45,000 vessels, and we are the largest military force in the galaxy. Check your instruments again because they are obviously broken. But Dr. Crixnall had already checked and rechecked the readings multiple times. The approaching fleet was real and it was larger than anything in recorded galactic history. Your Majesty, I have confirmed these readings with all our sensor stations throughout the system. The fleet is definitely approaching and the ships appear to be of human origin. The word human made Emperor Vextar stop laughing immediately. 3 days ago, Admiral Crixtall had returned from a successful raid on a human colony called New Haven, and reported that the humans had put up no real resistance. The attack had been intended as a demonstration of Zephyrian power to warn other species not to expand into territory that the Empire claimed. Summon Admiral Crixtall immediately, Emperor Vextar commanded. I want to know everything about these humans and why they think they can threaten the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Crixtall arrived at the palace within an hour, and he looked confident and proud as he entered the throne room. Crixtall was the finest military commander in the Zephyrian fleet, and he had led the Empire to victory in dozens of battles against alien enemies. He had personally supervised the destruction of New Haven colony, and he believed that the human threat had been eliminated. Your Imperial Majesty, Admiral Crixtall said as he saluted, I have reviewed the sensor data and I believe the humans are bluffing. No species could possibly build and maintain 700,000 warships. The logistics alone would be impossible. Emperor Vextar wanted to believe his admiral, but the sensor readings were too detailed to be fake. Crixtall, tell me exactly what happened at the human colony. Did they have any advanced weapons or defensive systems that we should know about? Admiral Crixtall shook his head confidently. Your Majesty, the human colony had only basic defensive systems and a few small patrol ships. Their technology was primitive and their military response was pathetic. I destroyed their entire settlement in less than 6 hours with only 12 dreadnoughts. Dr. Crixnall cleared his throat nervously and activated his display again. Your Imperial Majesty and Admiral Crixtall, I am afraid the approaching fleet is very real. Our deepest space sensors show massive energy signatures consistent with advanced fusion reactors and weapon systems. These ships are not illusions or decoys. Admiral Crixtall studied the sensor data more carefully and his confidence began to fade. The energy readings showed technology that was significantly more advanced than anything the Zephyrians possessed. If these readings were accurate, then the human fleet represented a threat beyond anything the Empire had ever faced. Deploy the entire Imperial Navy to defensive positions around Zephyr Prime, Emperor Vextar ordered. If the humans want a war, then we will give them one they will never forget. Within hours, the Zephyrian fleet was moving into position around their homeworld. 45,000 warships took up defensive formations, while planetary defense systems powered up their massive energy cannons. The Zephyrians had never lost a major battle in their history, and they were determined to maintain that record even against impossible odds. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system in perfect formation, and the sight was beyond anything the Zephyrians had imagined. 700,000 ships stretched across millions of kilometers of space in organized battle groups that moved with mechanical precision. Each human ship was larger and more heavily armed than comparable Zephyrian vessels. Admiral Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and surveyed the Zephyrian defensive positions. Through his tactical display, the enemy fleet was positioned in a tight formation around their homeworld, which would make them easy targets for humanity's superior weapons and technology. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Communications Officer Lieutenant Sam Parker reported. They are demanding that we withdraw from their system immediately or face destruction. Admiral Brooks smiled grimly and activated his own communication system. This is Admiral Ryan Brooks commanding the Earth Defense Fleet. 3 days ago, your forces attacked and destroyed New Haven Colony killing 2.3 million innocent human beings. We are here to ensure that such an atrocity never happens again. The Zephyrian response was immediate and predictable. Admiral Crixtall opened fire with every weapon his fleet possessed, and space around Zephyr Prime lit up with energy beams and missile explosions. The Zephyrians expected their opening salvo to cripple the human fleet and force them to retreat. But the human ships absorbed the Zephyrian attack with ease. Their advanced shield systems deflected energy weapons that should have destroyed entire squadrons. Their armor plating withstood missile impacts that would have vaporized lesser vessels. Not a single human ship was seriously damaged by the massive Zephyrian barrage. Admiral Brooks gave the order that the Zephyrians would remember for the rest of their history. All ships open fire. Show them what happens when they murder our people. The human response was devastating beyond the Zephyrians' worst nightmares. Plasma cannons powered by miniaturized fusion reactors cut through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. Kinetic railguns firing projectiles at 15% of light speed punched completely through enemy dreadnoughts and destroyed multiple ships with single shots. Captain Maria Santos led her battle group in a sweeping attack that destroyed an entire Zephyrian squadron in less than 10 minutes. Her heavy cruisers concentrated their fire on the enemy flagship and reduced it to burning wreckage in seconds. "Target destroyed, Admiral," she reported with satisfaction. Moving to engage the next enemy formation, Colonel Steve Johnson's fighter bombers swarmed through the Zephyrian fleet like angry insects, and their fusion warheads detonated inside enemy ships, causing massive internal explosions. The Zephyrian point defense systems could not track targets moving at the incredible speeds that human fighters achieved. Lieutenant Danny Carter watched from the destroyer UES New Haven's Fury as Zephyrian ships exploded all around him. Each enemy vessel that died was justice for his sister Lisa and all the other people who had been murdered at New Haven Colony. "This is for you, Lisa," he whispered as his ship's weapons destroyed another Zephyrian cruiser. The battle lasted exactly 4 hours, and when it was over, the Zephyrian Imperial Navy had ceased to exist. 45,000 warships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were now nothing but glowing debris floating in space around Zephyr Prime. Not a single human ship had been destroyed, and only a few had suffered minor damage. Admiral Crixtall found himself alone on the bridge of his crippled flagship with most of his crew dead around him. The ship that had destroyed New Haven Colony was now a powerless hulk drifting through space. He activated his personal communicator and sent a surrender message to the human fleet. Emperor Vextar watched the destruction of his navy from his palace and knew that the Zephyrian Empire had come to an end. The humans had demonstrated military power beyond anything he had thought possible, and there was no choice but to surrender unconditionally. Emperor Vexistar stood in his ruined palace throne room and stared at the human admiral who had just walked through his doors. Admiral Ryan Brooks was not a large man by Zephyrian standards, but his presence filled the room with quiet authority that made the Emperor feel small and defeated. Behind Admiral Brooks walked 6 human soldiers in combat armor that looked more advanced than anything the Zephyrian military had ever developed. "Emperor Vexitar," Admiral Brooks said in a calm voice that carried the weight of absolute victory, "I am here to discuss the terms of your unconditional surrender. Your military has been completely destroyed and your empire is now under human control." The Emperor's hands shook as he looked at the human admiral who had shattered his civilization in a single afternoon. 4 hours ago, the Zephyrian Empire had been the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and now it was nothing but scattered debris floating in space around the homeworld. Never in 800 years of Zephyrian history had they faced such total defeat. "What do you want from us?" Emperor Vextar asked in a voice that sounded hollow and broken. He knew that the humans could destroy his entire planet if they chose to, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. Admiral Brooks activated a portable display device and showed the Emperor a list of demands that would reshape the Zephyrian Empire forever. "First, you will immediately release all prisoners and slaves from the 17 worlds you have conquered. Second, you will dismantle all remaining military installations and surrender any weapons capable of attacking other worlds. Third, you will provide complete records of every military operation you have conducted, including the attack on New Haven Colony." The Emperor read through the long list of demands and realized that the humans were not interested in destroying the Zephyrian people, but they were determined to end the Empire's ability to wage war against others. The terms were harsh, but they were far more merciful than what the Zephyrians would have offered to a defeated enemy. Admiral Krikstal will be turned over to human authorities for trial as a war criminal. Admiral Brooks continued. He personally ordered the attack on New Haven Colony, and he will answer for the murder of 2.3 million innocent people. Emperor. Vextar nodded because he understood that Admiral Krikstal's fate had been sealed the moment he decided to attack the human settlement. The Zephyrian admiral was currently imprisoned in the wreckage of his flagship, waiting for human forces to collect him for transport to Earth. Captain Nicole Peterson was supervising the dismantling of Zephyrian weapons facilities on the planet's surface. Nicole had been chosen for this mission because of her experience with alien technology and her reputation for being fair but firm with defeated enemies. She walked through the massive weapons factories that had produced the ships and equipment used to conquer 17 worlds. Captain, we have found the construction records for their entire fleet, her technical officer, Lieutenant Carl Adams, reported. Carl was amazed by the scale of the Zephyrian military buildup and the resources they had devoted to warfare instead of improving life for their people. Nicole nodded as she examined the factory equipment that would be dismantled and converted to peaceful purposes. Make sure we catalog everything, Carl. The other species that were conquered by the Zephyrians will want to know exactly what weapons were used against them. Colonel Tony Garcia was working with Zephyrian financial officials to calculate the war reparations that would be paid to the families of New Haven, colony victims, and to the other worlds that had suffered under Zephyrian occupation. Tony had studied galactic economics for years, and he understood how to structure payments that would provide justice without completely destroying the Zephyrian economy. Colonel, the Zephyrians have significant mineral wealth on their outer worlds, his economic advisor, Major Ruth Clark, reported. If we manage the reparation payments carefully, we can provide meaningful compensation to victims while allowing the Zephyrian people to rebuild their civilization. Tony agreed because the goal was justice rather than revenge. The humans wanted to ensure that the Zephyrians could never again threaten peaceful worlds, but they also wanted to give them a chance to become productive members of the galactic community. News of humanity's overwhelming victory spread throughout the galaxy within days, and the reaction was immediate and dramatic. The Altarian Republic sent urgent diplomatic messages to Earth, requesting formal peace treaties and trade agreements. The Vegan Confederacy offered to share their advanced medical technology in exchange for human protection. Even the mysterious Proxima Collective emerged from their isolation to seek contact with the new galactic superpower. Dr. Amanda Foster had been appointed as Earth's new ambassador to the galactic community, and she found herself busier than any diplomat in human history. Amanda's office on Earth was constantly filled with alien representatives who wanted to establish friendly relations with humanity before they too became targets of human military action. Ambassador, the Centaurian Trade Union is offering exclusive mining rights on 12 worlds in exchange for a non-aggression pact, her assistant diplomatic officer, Captain Peter Green, reported. Peter was struggling to keep track of all the offers and requests that were pouring in from across the galaxy. Amanda smiled because the diplomatic response proved that humanity's demonstration of military power had achieved exactly what Admiral Brooks had intended. Schedule meetings with all the major powers, Peter. We want to make it clear that Earth seeks peaceful cooperation with anyone who respects human sovereignty. The trial of Admiral Krikstal was held on Earth and broadcast throughout human space so that everyone could see justice being served for the New Haven colony massacre. The Zephyrian admiral showed no remorse for his actions and claimed that he had only been following the military traditions of his people. The human court found him guilty of crimes against humanity and sentenced him to life imprisonment on a remote prison. World Lieutenant Danny Carter attended the trial and felt a sense of closure when he heard the guilty verdict. His sister Lisa had died protecting innocent people, and now her killer would spend the rest of his life paying for his crimes. Danny remained in the human fleet and was promoted to captain of his own destroyer, which he named UES Lisa Carter in honor of his fallen sister. The memorial for New Haven colony was built on the lunar surface where it could be seen from Earth and serve as a permanent reminder of the price of aggression against humanity. The memorial included the names of all 2.3 million victims and featured a recording of Captain Lisa Carter's final transmission that had brought the terrible news to Earth. President Martinez spoke at the memorial dedication ceremony, and her words were broadcast to every human settlement in the galaxy. The people of New Haven Colony died because aliens thought we were weak and defenseless. Their sacrifice revealed humanity's true strength and ensured that no other human world will ever suffer the same fate. Admiral Brooks established new military protocols that would govern human space for generations to come. The 700,000 ship fleet was reorganized into patrol groups that monitored all approaches to human territory. Any alien military force that entered human space without permission would face immediate destruction regardless of their stated intentions. Dr. Torres continued her xenobiological research, but now she focused on understanding alien cultures that might pose future threats to human settlements. Her reports helped Earth's military planners identify potential enemies before they could organize attacks on human worlds. The galaxy had learned a permanent lesson about humanity's true nature. During the brief war with the Zephyrian Empire, humans appeared to be peaceful farmers and merchants who preferred trade and diplomacy to warfare. But beneath that peaceful exterior lay the largest and most advanced military force in galactic history, ready to defend human lives and human interests with overwhelming violence. Alien historians would study the Zephyrian War for centuries, and they all reached the same conclusion about humanity. Humans were not conquerors who sought to dominate other species through military force. Instead, they were protectors who had built unimaginable military power to defend themselves and their allies from those who would do them harm. The simple message that emerged from the ashes of the Zephyrian Empire became known throughout the galaxy as the human doctrine. Touch one human settlement and face the wrath of 700,000 warships carrying 2 million of humanity's finest warriors. The galaxy was now a safer place for peaceful species and a much more dangerous place for those who chose the path of conquest and aggression. In the years that followed, New Haven Colony was rebuilt and became a symbol of human resilience and determination. The new colonists who settled there understood that they were protected by the most powerful military force in galactic history, and that no enemy would ever again threaten human civilians without facing terrible consequences.